When Matt Rhule was hired by Nebraska 1 year ago, he brought along one of the best coaching staffs in the country. Coaches who had both experience and culture. However, there was one coach that Matt Rhule hired that didn't have either of that. Wide receivers coach Garret McGuire, one of the most scrutinized additions in the country. Now, 18 months later, it's finally time to revisit this hire. We're going to go over the pros, the cons, and everything else in between for the first year of Garret McGuire's tenure at Nebraska. So very quickly, we have a jam-packed episode today. Make sure to smash that like button if you're excited about the future of Nebraska's coaching staff, along with subscribing to the channel. We're going to be posting a video about Nebraska football and Nebraska recruiting every single day this summer. So make sure to sub if you don't want to miss out on anything Huskers, or just want to help me hit 3,000 subs. But without further ado, let's jump right into it, talking about Garret McGuire. And right off the bat, many might be asking, why was he so controversial? Now, the reason he was is because when he got to Lincoln to be the new wide receivers coach for the Huskers, he was only 23 years old. He only had 2 years of coaching experience under his belt as an assistant for the Carolina Panthers. And a lot of people, a lot of Husker fans, they didn't think he had enough experience. They didn't think he knew enough about the game of football and knew enough about coaching to jump into this big of a role. It should be noted that he actually played college football before he got into coaching, and he was a quarterback. So this was all very new to him, and there is a good reason why he was scrutinized by most of the fan base. But with that being said, let's go to the pros in which Garret McGuire has done over the last couple months, and one of the reasons why I feel really good about his future with Nebraska, and this is the recruiting aspect. In the 2024 class, he had 3 4-star wide receiver commits to Nebraska, guys who were in-state players, guys who are from Florida. And looking at the 2025 class, it's just getting better. He's got multiple 4- and 5-star players to get on visits to Lincoln, including Michael Terry, one of the most sought-after players in the country, 5-star #1 athlete. And one thing that really I gravitated towards when I was looking into Garret McGuire's recruiting is something that Bryson Hayes said. If you're not familiar with him, he is a current Nebraska receiver commit. And he said that the reason why he committed to the Huskers is because Garret McGuire is so relatable because of his young age, that he felt like he was talking to a peer. And he said, I don't get that anywhere else in the country. A lot of times when I'm talking to coaches, they're 10, 20, 30 years older than me. But the fact that Garret McGuire is so young and he's so full of energy, that's so big in the recruiting aspect. And also it's big in the practice aspect, and we're going to get to that in a little bit. But you feel really good about Garret McGuire's recruiting. He's been one of the bright spots, very active, very relatable. And he's a guy that I compare a little bit to Brian Hartline, who's the wide receiver coach at Ohio State. Really young guy, really full of energy, and he's such a great recruiter for the Buckeyes. That's somebody that you're trying to copy if you're Garret McGuire, and trying to be one of those better recruiters in the country. So that's something that I've been very impressed with. And I also have been impressed with the culture of Garret McGuire. Again, like I talked about, he's a player's coach. He's a relatable guy. He's somebody that as a player you feel comfortable going to. And really, that's not just a thing about Garret McGuire, but that's something that you can take to the bank about every single coach on Matt Rhule's coaching staff, that all of these guys are players coaches. All of these guys are relatable, and all of them are all about building a strong culture for this team and for this program, for this university. So those are 2 pros about Garret McGuire that I've been really fond of. But with that being said, he was a controversial hire, and because of that, there are a couple cons over his first year, and let's just dive into it. And this has been the development aspect. Now, this is not a shocker to me. The fact that it is only his 3rd year coaching, first year coaching college football. Again, he was a quarterback in college at Baylor, still basically learning how to coach receivers. Development was not up to par in 2023. Let's just keep it 100%. Okay, we had a couple transfers who came in from all over the country. Billy Kemp, Marcus Washington, Josh Fleeks came in, right? And none of those guys played up to snuff like we projected them to in 2023. Billy Kemp barely produced. Joshua Fleeks only produced at the end of the year. He got to campus out of shape. And then Marcus Washington in his second year with the program was significantly worse compared to what he was in 2022. So again, a lot of that isn't to be blamed about Garret McGuire. Like, Again, he can't control some of those aspects, but yeah, he does deserve a little bit of the blame. And I'm trying not to be too critical because I understand it's his first year, but yeah. And when you look at the other part of the wide receiver room, the freshmen, that was also a huge struggle. Now, the wide receiver room was not conditioned enough going into the season. That's a gimme. That was obvious. And there's a reason why every single receiver got banged up. Okay, Billy Kemp got injured. Marcus Washington got injured. Josh Fleeks got injured. Alex Bullock got injured. IGC got injured. Everybody got injured. So because of that, and because of our lack of conditioning and lack of preparedness, and again, some of that is his fault, some of that's Matt Rhule's fault, some of that is just freak incident stuff. Guaranteed, okay? But some freshmen had to get in the game. And those guys are like Jalen Lloyd, Malachi Coleman, guys who are super talented, but they were not ready to play, and it was obvious. And sometimes that's hard, right? When you're getting on campus in only 2 months, and then you have to go out and play against Illinois or play against Iowa, right? That's hard to really adjust to that and learn the playbook that quick, but they weren't ready. And you saw that in the stats. You saw that in the playbook. Jalen Lloyd and Malachi Coleman, there were only so many plays that we felt comfortable ruling them out and giving them the football because they didn't know all the playbook. Or like Jalen Lloyd specifically, he was only a deep shot man last year. Every single one of his catches was 20 yards or more because that was the only place we really felt comfortable giving him the football. So the bottom line is that the development was not good enough. Okay, the freshmen were not ready to get in the game. The injuries in the room were pretty bad, and a lot of transfers who we thought were going to be instant contributors were not good enough. But here's the silver lining. Okay, it might seem like I'm being very critical of Garret McGuire, but I'm going to tell you this. One, a couple of those things I just mentioned are not his fault. They're not his fault. Okay, injuries are not 100% his fault. The developmental issues are not 100% his fault. That's true. And what I'm going to also say about this is that Garret McGuire is a project coach. Just like these freshmen and these sophomores are being developed by Matt Rhule, so is Garret McGuire. He's only 23. I think he's 24 years old as of right now. Okay, imagine how good of a coach this guy is going to be when he's 27, when he's 30. Imagine how good of a recruiter he's going to be. He's still learning. And the fact that he's so young and he's already doing this at such a high level. Okay, there are 23-year-olds who are grad assistants. He's a wide receiver coach for a Power 5 program. So that's the silver lining to all this. Yeah, he had his pros in year one. Yeah, he had his cons. Every single coach does. But the fact that he's so young, oh my goodness, that should get you fired up as a Nebraska fan because he could be one of the best offensive coaches, if not potentially an offensive coordinator in the next couple of years just because of how high his potential is. And I also want to mention one more thing. If you're not familiar with Garret McGuire, his dad is actually a head coach at Texas Tech. Coaching runs in his bloodline. I just feel really good about his future. So again, it might seem like in that con section, I was maybe being a little harsh about him. But we have to go back to the pros. We have to go back to the potential. That's why I believe this was a great hire by Matt Rhule. Okay, every single coach that he hired had their cons in 2023. No doubt about it. That's not debatable. But what makes Garret McGuire different is that he has 50, 60 more years of coaching down the line. That's what makes him different. And his potential is through the roof. Recruiting's just going to get better. Development's just going to get better. And ideally, he's going to be a Brian Hartline figure. And what that means is he's going to be one of the best wide receiver coaches, offensive coaches in all of college football. So at the end of the day, it was a controversial hire. Most Nebraska fans were not a fan of it. They were questioning Matt Rhule. They were questioning really his reasoning behind it. But at the end of the day, the potential is through the roof. We saw that over the last 18 months of his hiring period, over his tenure. And I'm going to tell you this, over the next 18 months, over the next 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, Nebraska is going to be reaping the benefits of his hire. So let me know down below, what is your skepticism about Garret McGuire? Were you worried about it at the time? How are you feeling now? What are the pros? What are the cons over the first year? Let me know all that down below. Hey, if you made it this far in the video, make sure to smash that like button and subscribe if you haven't already. And as always, folks, go Big Red, go Matt Rhule, and see you in the next one.